About 170 years ago, John J. Hart and his wife Nellie were out for a stroll in their property. They came across a particular spot that resonated with Nellie, and she said to John, "This is where I want to be buried someday." Maybe it was the razor wire or the steep embankments that made her feel safe, or the sound of jet engines producing 50,000 pounds of thrust flying in and out of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta that made her think that she would never truly be alone, even in death. Of course, that's obviously not what she was experiencing at the time. It was unimaginable that those things would even exist. And at the time of their stroll and when Nellie died and was buried here, it was a small, quiet community well outside the hustle and bustle of antebellum Atlanta. With Nellie's death in 1860, Hart Cemetery was established, and dozens of Hart family members living here in what was the Flat Rock community would end up buried here. For 65 years, not much changed. The area around Atlanta steadily grew, and in 1925, this new thing called aviation started gaining traction, and an airport was constructed about a mile north of here at the abandoned Atlanta Speedway racetrack. By 1942, over 1 million passengers a year went through Atlanta's airport, and by the 1950s, it was easily one of the busiest in the world, a ranking that it has remained in today. With growth, though, comes consumption. The first jet airliner flew through here in 1957. And with that, the advent of the jet age meant more people, more flights, longer runways, and a lot more infrastructure. Bigger terminals, more parking, interstate highways, 12,000-foot runways and taxiways, hotels, cargo processing facilities, 4,700 acres, 7.3 square miles of airport. The community of Flat Rock was disappearing, being eaten up, and by the 1970s, the Flat Rock Baptist Church sold its property to the airport. With that came not one, but 2 cemeteries, the Hart family plot, as well as the larger Flat Rock Cemetery. Their protection and upkeep then became the responsibility of the airport. The 2 cemeteries were left relatively undisturbed, the Flat Rock Cemetery being the closest to an active taxiway, about 1,300 feet south of Taxiway Romeo. But in 2001, with passenger traffic at about 80 million a year, the Department of Aviation was anticipating a potential 50% increase to around 121 million passengers by the year 2015. And with that, a 5th runway would need to be constructed. The question then became, where do we put this 9,000-foot runway? Interstate 85 and 285 bordered 70% of the northwest and southern sections of the property, and the thought of moving or just flat out destroying 2 cemeteries would be met with considerable backlash. So they got creative. Runway 1028 would be built south of the cemeteries and across Interstate 285. At a cost of $1.3 billion, massive bridges were built across the highways for both the runway and the taxiways. And 11 stories of filler dirt were used in some places to create a flat landing environment. That filler dirt has its own story about corruption and campaign contributions in exchange for contracts, but that's pretty much par for the course when it comes to big infrastructure developments in the United States. The building of runway 1028 destroyed all of what was left of the neighborhoods here and completely altered the area surrounding the cemeteries, as Taxiway Sierra was constructed to allow aircraft to move to and from the runway and gate areas. With the opening of the 5th runway in 2006, the airport joined a small group of mega airports capable of triple simultaneous landings. Though surrounded by an orchestra of activity, the 2 cemeteries will remain relatively protected and undisturbed, as further expansion is unlikely, and their established presence will not likely be jeopardized. But with 110 million passengers traveling in the pre-pandemic travel world, it would be a far cry to say that the people buried here are truly resting in peace. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon subscribers for helping me get here. As always, until next time, get lost.